Hello, Dr. Tara Porter. Welcome to Welldoing.
Oh, thank you
It's
for having
good to
me.
see you again. I'm really pleased to say that your book, Good Enough, A Framework for Modern Parents, has been chosen as a Welldoing Book of the Month.
I'm
So that's
thrilled.
what we're going to be asking you a few questions about. I wanted to start by asking what led you to write this book?
I guess, I mean, I'm a therapist at my heart. I'm a clinical psychologist and I've been in clinical practice for 30 years and in CAMS mainly, child and adolescent mental health. And obviously that's been a time where CAMS has been overwhelmed by young people needing help and we haven't been able to meet the demand. And all the time there's a call for more resources for more CAMS workers, bigger departments. And of course, we do need that. But actually, in writing this book, I was very influenced by a quote by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who said, there comes a time where we need to stop pulling people out of the river and we need to go upstream and figure out why so many people are falling in. And that's what I feel about CAMS. We need less children and adolescents suffering with their mental health. Um, so, this book is sort of my attempt to think about that and answer that, and what this current generation can do differently at parenting, where we need to make the adjustments and the changes, and for future generations as well. So that's my inspiration really.
And do you think modern parents, I know you're talking to even future parents, but in your framework, in your ideas about what people could be doing, but do you think modern parents are parenting in different ways than they were brought up?
I think there are differences. I mean, I think one of them, I don't want to sort of throw away the baby with the bathwater. I think what I've noticed and what the kind of research shows is that we've gone to sort of more extreme positions in our parenting. So, the concept of a good enough parent for me is somewhere on a continuum. Um, I'm not talking about kind of a neglectful parenting with it's not giving kids opportunities or not having expectations of kids, not giving them chances in life. But the other end of the continuum, we seem to have gone to a sort of thing of perfect parents, of, constantly striving and kind of quite extreme um, parenting ethoses. And I'm trying to find that middle, what I call the messy middle of parenting, where we look at the research, we look at the clinical experience and think what's best for kids in that middle. And I think that good enough idea is a kind of place where a kid can be themselves, and they can it's a place where parents can be compassionate. It's a place where there's flexibility and that kids people are allowed to make mistakes, So I think it's just about dialing down some of the kind of more extreme stuff that's kind of going on in parenting, really.
In your
Yeah.
book, you talk about how, parents can become very anxious and depressed and overwhelmed by parenting, especially if they're aiming for perfection in their parenting. Well, how does it affect children?
Well, I think, we know that anxiety particularly is contagious, right? We've all had that experience where we've been feeling pretty chill about something. Maybe we've got, I don't know, a train to catch or something like that, and we're all ready and we're feeling pretty chill about it. And then somebody comes along with their anxiety and they go, "Come on, we're going to be late. What are you doing?" And suddenly you're anxious as well, right? And I think we forget that about children, that they pick up on our anxiety. And when parenting goes to these sort of extremes that I'm talking about, where life becomes so busy, we have sort of stacked up activities after school, parents, with the best of hearts, really, thinking they're doing the right thing, perhaps rushing from work to meet them at school and they want to get a healthy snack. They don't just want to pick up any old snack, and then they've got their Kumon or their swimming or their football practice. Lots of stuff that used to be done in back gardens or on streets now are part of a kind of formal activities. um, it can all just get, a bit much, So I think that's what I'm trying to kind of talk about, that kind of dialing down of it all, really. Yeah.
One of the things that comes up quite a lot now is this concept of gentle parenting. Where does that
Yeah.
come in on the spectrum?
Yeah. I mean, I think in my book, I took some time and I thought about all the different stages. So my book runs from babyhood right up to 18 plus. And then I kind of thought, what does each stage need? What does a baby need? What does a toddler, a preschooler need? What does a child at primary school need, and a tween and a teen? And when it came down to it, when I sort of synthesized all the research and looked at all of my experience, it came down to, for me, three things. And that was this good enough attitude that we've already talked about, the concept of being a relationship-based parent, and the third one is firm and kind, which is the old, which we know has come up in research over and over again, this sort of authoritative parent as opposed to authoritarian parent. I always struggle with that one. I think giving them such similar names is tricky. But so the authoritative parent for me is the firm and kind parent. And I see that we've gone to, social media now, there's sort of factions of parents, with the kind of heavy-handed discipline, perhaps an old-fashioned model of parenting, and then the gentle parenting, and parents having this idea that they should always kind of listen to their child's big emotions. And of course, as therapists, especially working in camps, of course, it's important to listen to children's emotions. But when it gets taken to extreme, it puts an enormous pressure on parents, So, and that's when the kind of anxiety or the depression, the feeling that you're not being good enough comes in. You're not meeting this standard of never losing your temper, or listening to their emotions, that they want to wear, that they're upset that they want to wear their ballet shoes in the rain, or. So I guess for me, gentle parenting and, a kind of more, a model with firmness in it are both important, firm and kind. And we don't want parents to be going into factions. We don't want them to feel that they're getting it wrong, because you only have to be good enough, right? You have to take some firmness. Sometimes they just need to be picked up and carried out, being upset with their wellies on, not their ballet shoes. And sometimes you have to sit with them and understand their feelings. And so I'm trying to give parents a framework to understand, to have a think about it. I'm not trying to be kind of judgy, or or giving them another stick to beat themselves up with. I'm just trying to give them a framework to think about that stuff.
I wondered if you could give us an example of what good enough would look like if you were dealing with a toddler's tantrum.
Yeah, I mean, in my book, I obviously, as a clinical psychologist, we come from a research framework, but then obviously I've spent many years listening to parents and children and adolescents. But to make it more kind of accessible, I also think about my own parenting, and I reflect on it in light of the kind of research and clinical experience as well. And so toddler tantrums, when my eldest was a very tantrumy toddler. The whole zeitgeist of the time was sort of super nanny and the naughty step and all these sorts of things. And I reflect in the book how I feel like I overused that. But now I see, for a younger generation of parents who the zeitgeist is now the gentle parenting, their expectation is that they sit with their child and wait for their child to calm down, and they should always be doing that. And I think that you need both. You need some firmness and you need some kindness, yeah? And you need both of those tools. So it might be that sometimes the toddler tantrum has to be ignored because you've got other children and you've got work to do and you've got fish fingers to cook. And sometimes you spend the time just picking them up, putting on your lap and saying, come on now, let's have a cuddle, let's have a think about this, you know. And so, and that's when we have these sort of strict rules about got to be a gentle parent or you've got to be putting them in time out every single time. Parents just can't keep that.
Mm.
And that's why I kind of want to find that messy middle of parenting in the middle way. You know that both of those true things are true, that they need firm, they need kind, but you also know you've got a tax return to get in, or a call to your boss that you need to do, or another child who needs feeding. So
Absolutely. I mean, I think your book is great, and I also think it's very interesting on teenagers. And there's a lot of talk now about teenagers and devices and the internet, etc. I thought if we could just finish now by asking you a difficult question, but
yeah.
do you think mobile use should be age restricted? Does that tempt you as a good idea, or do you think that's overdoing it?
Well, what I think, Louise, is that when we think about things which have an age use, they're things which are generally, so we think about cigarettes or alcohol, they're clearly not good things, for kids. And we, as yet, we know the phone isn't great for kids, but is it not great for kids like giving them a cigarette would be not great for kids? Or is it not great for kids like giving them a pack of crisps isn't great for kids? Because giving them a pack of crisps is good enough, right? When they're hungry. So I think I'm the debate seems to get again, it goes into factions, doesn't it?
Mm.
Again, and it becomes very toxic. And I think we need to think, what is it going to look like? How are we going to have restrictions on this phone? Because we know it's bad. So is it going to be an age ban, or is it going to be I mean, I'm really interested in community-based solutions. I think, the reason kids want their phone is because all the other kids in school have a phone. Yeah. And phone, I don't think schools particularly want this responsibility, but I don't see how we're going to break that peer pressure without the school being involved at the center of the debate and the center of whatever we think of to try and control the phone. So that's kind of an avoidant answer. I mean, I guess we know that a lot of harm is being done on phones. We know about internet porn, we know about body dysmorphia, we know all sorts of different things happening on the phone. So, but I'm not sure we've yet identified what the mechanism is for us to try and control that better.
Good answer. Thank you very much, Tara. Again, I'll just show you the book. I really think it's great. I'm a new grandmother, so I'm hearing a lot
Congratulations.
more about baby, toddler, preschool, school age. But plus, I've got children myself and remember quite well the issues that come up. And it does seem that parents, new parents, and parents of young children are under enormous pressure. So I think if there's something that isn't on the net, but is actually a book that you can take away separate from that, that's probably a good idea and a good way to get to people.
Great. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thanks very much.